park. We'll focus on birds, but we'll talk about other parts of the park and why it'd be great to get you guys out there. So as I'm going through this, there's a lot. There's a lot of pictures. Most of them I took. If you notice one that's really sharp, like this one of the great blue heron, Alex took those. So all the pictures on this are either taken by myself or Alex. So just want to do a little bit of geography here. Oops. Trying to, it'll take me a second to figure out my, hold on. No, oh, there we go. All right, I got to figure it out. All right, so a little bit of geography. Can you guys see my cursor too?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is Monticello, and so Allerton Park is shown here in orange. It's southwest of Monticello, 3.5 miles, and this orange that you're seeing here that's about 1,500 acres. This lighter yellow is the 4-H Memorial Camp, which is also part of the University of Illinois. And then this other yellowish orange color is all University of Illinois farms that we have a little bit of, we work with these guys too. So all of that in the yellows and oranges is University of Illinois property. What you see here in blue, this property and this little triangle one down at the bottom, that was previously Allerton property as well. But when Allerton gifted this to the University of Illinois, he gifted this to the Art Institute of Chicago. And the Art Institute of Chicago held on to it until around 2001, and they sold it to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. So now you've got Allerton in orange, Illinois Department of Natural Resources in blue. This little purple patch is the Land Conservation Foundation. It's a not-for-profit that's conservation based, and they have trails here. This purple coming up through here is all owned by the city of Monticello, but is in a land and water reserve program through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And then north of Monticello, Lodge Park.
Oh, really?
So just wanting to show you this to point out that in the Monticello area along the Sangamon River, there is a lot of protected land, and it makes for a really contiguous corridor of Sangamon River. The Sangamon River runs from up here all through all of this. I have when we get, I have a Google map pulled up that if anybody has questions about the geography of anywhere that we talk about, we can do that afterwards. Here's just a close look at the park. This is the map you can find on Allerton's website. I'll be referring to some of the trails as we go through this, but most of what I'll be talking about is here on the south side of the park. The north side of the park is where you would go if you've gone to see the formal gardens or a concert or to the conference center. That all is in the 200 or so acres right in here. The rest of the park is all maintained mainly as natural areas with hiking trails. I'll refer to the Buck Schroth Memorial Trail, call it the Red Trail. I'll also be referring to the Lost Garden, which is right down here, marked as the 17 on this map. I'll refer to the Green Trail, the Blue Trail. And then I will also make mention of this little creek. This is Willow Branch. So the park is really well known for the formal gardens, the retreat center, and it's known for its natural areas. I'm not going to talk much about the formal gardens or the retreat center. If you guys have questions about that, you can ask those at the end. I probably can answer them, but I'm not going to focus on it. Within the natural areas, like I said, it's myself and Alex. Our main job responsibilities are to help coordinate research that occurs in the park, through a lot of it comes through the University of Illinois, the Illinois Natural History Survey. We work with a number of other universities that are in the region as well. Same thing with field trips that are usually college based, but we also do a lot of high school field trips, things like that. We maintain the trail system. The park has 14 or so miles of trails that are open to hiking, cross-country skiing, things like that. We don't have any mountain bike trails or horse trails or anything like that. We do the ecological management. So we manage for invasive species. We manage for prescribed fire, that kind of stuff. And then we do the wildlife management in the park too. So we have a deer management program that we're in like our 16th year of that. So if you guys have questions on that when we get done, we can talk about that too. Just a couple quick slides. Here's some students getting out into the woods. This was a group of college students that were going to see our heron rookery. We are fairly aggressive when it comes to prescribed fire. Most of the uplands of Allerton Park are oak and hickory dominated, and we've decided to try and keep it that way. So we don't adhere to a strict every 2 years, every 5 years. We try to burn our forest when the conditions allow us to burn. So sometimes we might burn 2 or 3 years in a row, and other times we'll have 5 to 7 year break where we just can't get the conditions to match up. This fall was a very good year for burning at the park, so we did a lot of burning. Quickly touch on just if you're out there, you're going to see a lot of research going on in the park. Insect traps. This is a hydrology project that's ongoing all over the park. This is some soil mycorrhizal fungi project that's looking at tree recruitment. Reptiles, we do have the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake at the park. People always ask. There's always a rumor that Robert Allerton released rattlesnakes into the park so that to keep people out. That's not true, but it has been a stronghold for the eastern Massasauga. We have a healthy population of Kirtland's water snakes, and that's a Kirtland there on the right and the Massasauga on the left. Mud puppies, we have an ongoing research project on mud puppies. Mud puppies are state listed, one of our largest salamanders, and this project is ongoing right now. We caught 2 yesterday and 1 today, so I can talk about that a little bit if anybody has questions about that later. Mammals, most of our mammal work is focused on white-tailed deer because we spend a lot of time managing that population. But I put these pictures up because these are kind of this is the more exciting one right now. We started to get pictures from neighboring properties and from the park late this summer, and then continued here through February. We've gotten some pictures of bobcats in the park finally. It was kind of, we've been waiting for it to happen, and this year it seems like one is kind of taken up residence in the area. And of course, birds. So that's what we'll focus on from here on out. These are just a couple snapshots from some of the research projects that have gone on the last few years. There on the left, that's Given Harper. He's a professor at Illinois Wesleyan who's studying red-tailed hawk migration. And it's pretty interesting the way that they're looking at, they pull a feather and do some isotope work to determine where that bird originated at. But we'll get to the podcast later, but the podcast has a good discussion with Given all about his work if you want to go back and listen to one of those episodes. In the middle, Yellowcrested Chat, that was Kirk Stadola and Brian Riley from Illinois Natural History Survey. We're out doing some work on different field nesting birds and edge species. Again, there's a podcast where we talked to Brian Riley in more detail about that project. And then yellow-billed cuckoo on the right, that was trapped, misnetted by Todd Jones and Janice Kelly when they came out to help us with like a family programming day that we do in the park. So I wanted to go back in time a little bit and do a little bit of history. This is the oldest photo that I can find in the Allerton archives of relating to birds at all. And it's not a happy picture. This was taken around 1930. We think this was taken right on the main drive, on the gatehouse drive is what we call it, but it's the road leading up to the mansion. And we know that the guy in the picture is Allerton's head farmer, Elmer Priebe. He farmed for Allerton for many years and lived just outside of the park. But this was probably a pretty common sight back in this time, before people really started to care about birds the way we all do now. So in 1930, Robert Allerton was still living on the property. Robert Allerton built the mansion on the site in 1899 and lived there on and off until 1946, when he gifted the property to the University of Illinois. So in 1946, the property was gifted to the University of Illinois, and shortly thereafter, Dr. Charles Kindy from the University of Illinois began doing bird work, not only at Allerton, but all over. But he published some of his first Allerton work in 1948, shortly after the university took over that property, and continued to publish work. His last one that I have seen was 1982. So he did a lot of work throughout the 50s and 60s. And he has some pretty amazing sightings for the park. We've read through a lot of his old field notes and stuff that we have out of the park. He had a yellow rail, and he was an old he was an old school ecologist himself. So it's a funny note there that he saw a yellow rail at Allerton, and then he shot it, and it is currently in the collection at the Illinois Natural History Survey. He had loggerhead shrike at the park, numerous occurrences of black-billed cuckoos nesting, lots and lots of sightings of long-eared and northern saw-whet owls. So a few years ago, Alex, that works with me, went back through all of Kindy's actual and put it all into eBird. So you can actually go into eBird, and it's listed under Charles Kindy or Kindy historical data, something like that. But you can see all of his sightings. We've entered all that into eBird. I want to just switch gears a little bit off of the kind of history of the park and just jump into some of the birds that are maybe not necessarily easy birds to see in the area, but they are relatively easy and reliably found at Allerton. So this is one, this is an Acadian flycatcher. We have, especially during migration, Acadian flycatchers are everywhere in the park, but we have a really large number of them that breed in the park too. So anytime from May through August, you can come into the park and find these guys. I put a note there that, you know, the Lost Garden, especially near the Sangamon River, where on the bluffs. So we're talking, usually this is going to be the high side of the river where the sugar maple mixes with our oak and hickory. That's a good place to see these guys. Green and blue trails. And again, this will be recorded. You can go back and see that map in the beginning, or you can just look at that map on Allerton's website. Henslow sparrows. This is one that Kindy used to have nesting in the park a lot. We think in the last few years they have nested in the park. We have not found an actual nest, but we've seen them later into the season. But definitely during migration, Allerton is a really great place to find Henslows. The Allerton Prairie Restoration, which is along that Red Trail or the Schroth Interpretive Trail, is a great place to find them, as is the IDNR grasslands. So I'll be talking a lot about the IDNR grasslands, but if you remember that map, that blue area, the part towards the river, so that's going to be to the northwest, is all forested, but everything between the forested land and the road is all grasslands. And so when I say IDNR grasslands, that's what I'm talking about. And when we get done, I can go back and show you a more detailed map of where exactly that is. Summer tanagers. Most years we can find summer tanagers nesting in the park. Again, kind of that very similar spot for them, the Red Trail, young forest, kind of edgy woods there. Here's the pair that we had this year. These two have made a nest really, really close to one of our trails. So we were able to kind of keep tabs on it as it progressed. But unfortunately, they had two small birds in there. One was a tanager and the other one was a cowbird. And the cowbird was the only one who made it. So these guys didn't do too good last year, but they're one that you can generally find throughout the summer at Allerton. We have a gray blue heron rookery on site. It's not accessible to the general public. It's well off of any trail and kind of in a quiet spot along the river. But we do an annual nest survey there, and in the last 20 years that I've been a part of that, we've had anywhere from 25 to 128 nests on that site. Right now, we're a lot closer to the low end of that. I think last year we had 30 or so nests, but it was concerning for me at first. But I've heard a lot of reports of other rookeries popping up and down the river. So I think they've kind of just spread out. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. So the great blue herons, if you come to the park, you'll see them up and down the river almost every day. Kentucky warbler, we will almost always have a couple pairs of Kentucky warblers that are nesting in the Lost Garden area. So they nest low to the ground, and I'm not very comfortable, searching out those nests for fear that I would disturb them. So we don't usually go looking for them, but we'll see them all summer long, in the same area. You can kind of go to those spots and guarantee you're going to run into one of these guys. But again, the Lost Garden, if you walk the trails in the Lost Garden during migration for sure, but even throughout the summer, you have a good chance of finding Kentucky warbler. So same thing with hooded warbler. They're pretty easy to find during migration in the park. And in years past, and again this year, we had one calling late into June. So I'm going to try and play this for you. It worked when we tested it out. Okay, so that's a sound you can come out and hear. Again, Lost Garden area. The Lost Garden is some of the oldest upland forest that we have in the park. So it's probably been cut over before, but very little selective harvest at some point. But it's as close to kind of an intact old growth forest around here that you could find. And I think that's probably why we have so many of these nice bird species there. All right, another warbler, the Yellowthroated Warbler. These guys are consistently nesting in the park. They're pretty commonly found in our floodplain forest. And I put here that Willow Branch Creek, if you remember when I showed you on the map, kind of at the far south end of Allerton, which it's in the Lost Garden again, the green trail. Along that Willow Branch Creek, you can almost always find these yellow-throated warblers, especially if you focus kind of on any of the American sycamore trees that are along that trail there. You have a good shot at finding these throughout the summer. Prairie Warbler, and if you look at that picture, when I said that the sharp pictures were not taken by me, they were taken by Alex. This is one of Alex's shots, one of my favorite ones that he's gotten. But the Prairie Warblers, we'll see them in the park sometimes in the spring during migration. But the IDNR property, where they have a little bit more shrubby, open habitat and more edges, is a great spot to see Prairie Warblers all spring and throughout the summer. I happened upon this one nesting last year. This pair raised 5 Prairie Warblers, and I think they all left the nest happy and healthy. So, and this is a pretty common occurrence for that particular part of the IDNR and Allerton area. Another one, similar habitat, is the Yellowcrested Chat. You can come out and they can be hard to get a good look at, but you'll hear them almost anytime you walk the Schroth Interpretive Trail or walk onto the IDNR grasslands. So another fun bird that we have quite a few of that will nest in the park and be around all summer. Staying in that same habitat, the Bell's Vireo. Again, best place to see that is that same IDNR grassland that's right out here by Allerton. These guys are pretty reliably calling in there. Again, they can be kind of hard to get a look at too, but another great spot for these guys. And one more that you can find in that spot pretty easily is this Willow Flycatcher. Again, you'll have to listen for them. Okay, so these guys will be around all summer there too. So if you're coming out to Allerton and you want to get some of those unique birds, that IDNR grassland is a great place to stop. Now, the DNR does not have any trails on their property, so you have to be willing to kind of path and deal with ticks and bugs and thorns and poison ivy, but it's well worth it. Back in the park, in the forest, especially in those areas that I said we get a lot of burning in, the red-headed woodpeckers are very, very abundant. And I'm surprised on a day that I don't see 8 or 10 headed woodpeckers at the park. So if you're looking for to see woodpeckers, red-headed woodpeckers and pileated woodpeckers, it's a great place. And I put any of our upland forests at the park, it would be a perfect spot to go. When I told you guys that I had left Allerton for 5 years and then I came back. I returned to Allerton in 2013, and one of my goals when I came back is I wanted to get Allerton the status of one of Audubon's important bird areas, and it turned out to be more difficult than I thought. And there were a number of ways to kind of go about doing it, but the way that we approached it was to try and prove that we were one of the 3 most important areas for red-headed woodpeckers in the state of Illinois. We were supposed to do counts every year and all this stuff. We started doing that work We had an actual high count of 128 red-headed woodpeckers on one day in the park. It was in December. But then shortly after we started that, they took red-headed woodpecker off of the list of species that could be used in that manner. But we still have a lot of them. We had 84 this January for the Christmas bird count. And when that happened, I kind of gave up that goal of trying to become an IBA and focus more on just strictly promoting birding at Allerton, just for the sake of promoting it and getting people out to enjoy birds at the park. We focus some energy into doing guided hikes in the natural areas. We lead some like nighttime owl prowls. We do other bird hikes. We do tree ID hikes, anything to get people into the natural areas. We put some focus on that. All trying to get people to come out and do things like bird at Allerton. We put a lot of effort into adding more data to eBird. When I came back and kind of got situated in 2014, Piatt County eBird data had only 220 checklists. And that's not, they didn't have 220 checklists in 2014. They had a total of 220 to that point. And since 2014, we have added, there's been 2,242 checklists added to eBird. So we're getting more people into the park. A lot of those checklists are mine and Alex's, but we are still getting lots and lots more people into the area to look for birds. We've also added 49 new county species to eBird. A lot of these have been seen before in the county, most likely, but they just hadn't been documented in eBird. So just trying to get those numbers up so that people see them and come out to Bird Park. And so with all that, we eventually decided, let's start a small bird club just to, put our stuff out there, get people involved even on another level. So that's what we did. In 2019, we made a simple Facebook page and started adding material that we collected from the park, photos and promoting hikes and things like that. So anybody can join. If you're not a member of the Allerton Park Bird Club Facebook page, you can go there right now and join. You don't even have to wait for somebody to approve it. You'll see we try and post to it at least a couple times a week, things that we run into in the park or different videos that we get. So it's a pretty good follow, I think. We try and make it fun and interesting. We do have a paid membership where people can pay $20 as an individual or $40 as a family. The benefits of that is they get free registration to any of the bird related hikes, which in 2020, we didn't really have any hikes, of course, but we are going to be starting ours again soon as well. You get a sticker and free rental of binoculars that we have too. And then any of those funds that we collect support things like bird feeders. We have a couple different bird feeders set up in the park, nest boxes, the loaner, binoculars, things like that. And then, of course, not long after we got the bird club kind of started on Facebook, COVID-19 hit, and we had to kind of make some adjustments on our everyday stuff at the park. That's Alex on the left and me on the right with my kids. But the university closed the park, so we were both working from home. Alex luckily lives almost on site at Allerton, so he's out at the park, even if he's at home for the most part. I live in a pretty good spot for seeing wildlife and birds too. So we both decided we were just gonna put a lot of emphasis on collecting digital content that we could put up onto the Bird Club Facebook page and just try and bring as much of the Allerton outdoors to people through that. And so we started doing a lot of Facebook Live things. If you follow the Bird Club thing, you'll know that we will pop up a phone on the bird feeders and try and get if I see on my feeders that I've got something interesting, I'll throw the camera up and try and let it catch something up close. This there on the right is Alex is doing a Digiscope Facebook Live of this barred owl sitting in a nest cavity. So we try, and we're out in the woods every day, and we try to bring as much of that onto that Facebook page that we can. The other thing that we've done a lot of is when we come across something interesting in our daily routine, like this Pileated Woodpecker, I just happened to be walking and caught him in when he was starting to build a nest cavity. So, and just so, I guess, if you're looking for Pileated Woodpeckers, Allerton is a really good spot for that too. So I see these on a daily basis. We had 24 on this year's CBC at Allerton, in the Allerton area. But yeah, I came across this male making a cavity, and I'm lucky. I don't like climbing up trees very much, but Alex doesn't mind it. So if you look here on the left, this is a hemlock tree, and that's Alex up in the very top of it. He's looking, I think that time he was looking in a squirrel dray, maybe hoping to find something, making a nest up there. But he'll scamper up any tree or down any bank to add a camera if we think there might be something neat on the water. Or out here, he's leaning out on a branch to try and get a camera set up for some wood ducks. But when we found that pileated nest, Alex went up the tree and set up a camera on that nest that we could monitor throughout the nesting season. And the next slide is going to play a video of it. The woodpeckers are pretty loud when they're begging for food, so just a warning, they will be loud. So those the woodpeckers, we followed those guys throughout the entire nesting. You know, we put the camera up while they were still creating the cavity. We had the camera up the whole time they were incubating the eggs. I think they were, from our calculations, they were about 1 day off when we thought they would hatch. We could start hearing the young ones inside the tree on the camera. They fledged both a male and a female out of that nest. And if you're interested in it, all the videos we got from on the Facebook page, you can go back and watch all of them. We also had a raccoon that came there a couple different times and would reach into the hole trying to get one of the birds. He never was successful. We had flying squirrels checking out that cavity. But there's some really good videos of the pileated woodpeckers and that process. If you go back and search the videos on the Facebook page, you'll see all that pretty neat stuff. So the Bird Club was pretty successful. A lot of information to people. We were getting a lot of people to sending us questions and interested in birds in their yard and sending pictures, things like that. And one of my friends who followed the Bird Club page and has gotten big into birding over the last couple of years, Evan Smith, he's here in the back in the green hat. Evan had called me one day and said, I'm really into the birds, and he's got a history of doing music and digital recordings and stuff like that. He said, we need to do a podcast. And I just said, no, I'm not, that's not me. I'm not doing that. And he kept pushing and he kept pushing. And so eventually I agreed that we would record a couple episodes of it. And I'm surprised that I would say this now, but I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I've learned a lot, and it's really been a fun experience. So we started, I think, in July or August, maybe not even until September. I don't remember when we started, but we've recorded 40 different episodes. We've done it, identification basics. We've got a little thing here. We call it "What's This Bird?" Zach Sutton from Champaign County Audubon Society has been on, where we call in and he describes a bird that he's seeing somewhere, and we try and guess what it is and give time for whoever's listening to make that guess. We've interviewed local birders. We've interviewed a lot of different people who do different types of bird research on a national level. We went on our first kind of Allerton Park Bird Club field trip to Saxon Bog this winter. And Evan's a musician, so he's included a lot of original music. And my next slide is going to play one of his original music. So Ken, this is for you. Here it is. Supposed to play for you, Ken. Oh, there it goes.
Couple of guys, avian spies, Allerton Park Bird Club. Having a brew, learn something new, Allerton Park Bird Club. Getting out in the wild, our list compiled, Allerton Park Bird Club. Allerton Park Bird Club. Allerton Park Bird Club.
So it's pretty dorky. It's also catchy. My kids laugh at it every time they hear it. I kind of laugh every time I hear it too, but it's been fun doing that. And Evan and I, that's Evan on the left, me on the right. I know nothing about this stuff. So I show up, we try and do a lot of these recordings outside. I show up and we record, we interview people, and Evan takes it from there. So if you want to check out the podcast, you can find it on any of the podcast platforms. You can find it on Apple and on Spotify, and I don't know all the different ones, but I think it's on pretty much all of them. We also post almost all of the podcast episodes onto the Bird Club Facebook page with a direct link. So if you follow the Bird Club Facebook page, you'll be able to listen to these podcast episodes too. But like I said, we've had a lot of different guests that have been really fun. These are just the couple I had pictures of. This is Given Harper again from Wesleyan with the red-tailed hawks. This is Nathan Goldberg. He's a Chicago birder who this year, or in 2020, broke the Illinois big year record with 342 species. We have a good interview with him about that year-long process. This is Denver Holt from the Owl Research Institute in Montana. So we visited with him. He's been studying snowy owls for 30 some years. This is David Yaney. He's out in Pennsylvania and he's putting some transmitters on evening grosbeaks. So we had a nice visit with him about evening grosbeaks and how they can follow a relatively small bird with a tracking device. And then this is Andy Slade, who I went to high school with. He's from Monticello, but now he's out in Montana also studying lead poisoning in raptors. So just a few of the guests. We've had a whole host of guests, and it's been really fun. But you can hear all those episodes if you track down the podcast. And I think the next slide is also another one of Evan's original slides, original songs that he just put out after we got back from a trip. So more original music.
Going birding again. Just can't wait to go birding again. The life I love is going birding with my friends, and I can't wait to go birding again. Going birding again. Headed places that I've never been. Seeing birds that I may never see again. I can't wait to go birding again. Going birding again. Like a band of birds, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the birds keep turning our way. And our way. Going birding again. I just can't wait to go birding again. The life I love is going birding with my friends, and I can't wait to go birding again.
Yeah, so Evan's the musician, not me, but that's Evan. This is some photos from our trip to Sax-Zim. Evan and I went up to Minnesota along with Aaron Tedesco, who's a Champaign birder there, and a friend from Chicago, Scott Judd, who's a birder up in Chicago. But we hope to do more. This was just kind of a test trip that we took as a club, but we hope to do more of that in the future. And with that, I can I'll leave my screen sharing on. I got to figure out how I can see people. And then you guys, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks very much, Nate. We did have a question. Specifically, folks want to know, where can they see pileated woodpeckers?
Okay, let me see here. I am going to, all right. Let me figure out how I can see you guys. Well, as long as you can still see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see the presentation and the slides on the one side, yeah.
All right, let's see. I want to show you my maps if I can. Oh, here we go. All right. Are you able to see that map?
Yeah, we see the map.
Okay. All right, so again, this is Allerton in the orange. And if you come from Monticello, well, if you come from Champaign, a lot of times, so people are going to come into the park at the north entrance, right up here, and at the south entrance right here. But the best spot for pileated woodpeckers in the park is any of these trails that are on the south side. You can go to Google Maps here and look for Allerton Park Lost Garden or the Buckshroth Trailhead. Either one of those is going to put you onto a trail that's going to give you a good shot pileated woodpecker. The other spot that I'll show you guys here is this is. So here's Monticello. This is the Monticello golf course, and if you come out of Monticello on Allerton Road, there's the state property here has, get zoomed in a little bit more. The state property has 3 different parking lots. There's one right here along the road. There's one right here along the road. And there's one right here along the road. So this is the south entrance to Allerton. This is the state properties parking lot right here. This is a young planting of trees, like they were planted probably 20 years ago. Again, there's no trails on this property at all, but in these young trees and in all these edges are some of the best spots to see the Prairie Warblers and Willow Flycatchers and Yellowcrested Chats and Bell's Vireo and blue grosbeak and orchard orioles just a really neat spot. If you're coming to Piatt County, this would be a highly recommended spot to stop and poke around a little bit.
Cool. Megan also had a question, well, two questions. The first is, what would you say is the most common bird in the park? And then a follow-up question, what has been the most unusual bird visitor you've spotted there?
Most common bird in the park. The red-headed woodpeckers, I think, are one of the more common birds in the park. As far as a bird that is, common in the park more so than other places, I think. Of course, all the white-breasted nuthatches and black-capped chickadees. We have black-capped chickadees versus you guys and your Carolina chickadees. We're all black-capped at Allerton. So black-capped chickadees, white-breasted nuthatches, tufted titmice, all the woodpeckers. But yeah, so those are the really common forest birds that I think of that are as resident birds. Most unique visitor. Last year in the spring, I ran into a yellow-crowned night heron in the middle of the park. We had a swallow-tailed kite that I won't show you Alex's house, but it showed up at Alex's house actually, which is just outside of the west gate of Allerton. So, and it stayed kind of over a horse pasture for off and on for 10 or 12 days. So the swallow-tailed kite is probably the neatest bird we've had in the last couple of years.
Cool. And then Ken mentioned last week there were 2 pileated woodpeckers doing some bark rearranging on the green trail. And then there's another question, and I'm going to butcher the name because I don't know how to pronounce this. But it says you showed a pic of what appeared to be a
Sonitary.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Not American warbler. So have they been reported in the park?
Yeah, that picture was taken in the park. We have prothonotary warblers every year during migration. I've suspected in the past that they might nest somewhere in the park sometimes, but we've never documented one nesting in the park. Not while I've been around. I don't remember Charles Kendi having a documentation of them in the park nesting or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if we might not be kind of that wet, swampy stuff that they like, but yeah, we have them every year in the park.
Cool. And then Rex asks, how common are Baltimore orioles?
Yeah, very, very, very common. They nest all over. They're so good at hiding their nest, but almost every year we'll have 4 or 5 nests within 100 yards of the visitor center at the park. And a lot of years we can find one of those during the nesting season. They're really easy to see after the leaves fall off in the fall, and you look up, you can see where they had been all summer. But they make that kind of a hanging basket nest. But they're often, in my experience, almost always at the park in hackberry trees and on a branch that's high but kind of droops down, and they're always out on the tip of that. And the way they go in and out of those nests, they're hard to follow. So they're hard to find, but they are definitely there.
Cool. And then there's a question: what are the best place to find red-headed woodpeckers?
Yeah, red-headed woodpeckers. Any trail really on the south side, especially coming out of the Lost Garden, are pretty good. But the other really great spot. I'm going to turn off this. Maybe I don't know how to do that. So this is the Meadow at Allerton Park. These are the main. Here's the visitor center. Here's the main gardens. This is the Meadow. There's a trail that comes through the main gardens, through the sunken garden, if you've been there. And then this trail is a straight shot through these woods down to what we call the death of the last centaur, which is another statue. And this area is all white. It's a lot of white oak, and a lot of those white oak have died within the last 10 years. So it's a lot of dead white oak. And I always tell people to start here and walk to the death of the last centaur. And, if you don't see a red-headed woodpecker on that walk, you might not know what they look like, because there are a lot of them in that stretch.
Cool. And then Jay asks, when is migration season?
Well, it depends on what bird which bird you're looking for, but migration season is almost always occurring for somebody. But a lot of the waterfowl are moving right now. But in terms of some of those smaller passerines and warblers and things like that first couple weeks in May is kind of when we get our peak at the park. Probably just the same time you would in Champaign.
Cool. I also want to ask for folks that are not able to type in the chat box, if you have any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions now, since I think I've gone through all of the questions in the chat. So if you have a question and you'd like to ask Nate directly, please do so now. If not, thank you again, Nate. This was really informative. And by the questions, I mean, you can see that folks are very interested. And yeah, hopefully I'll get out to Allerton soon.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate coming on, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Come out to the park.
Very much. And Sarah posted a link to the recording of this. Well, she posted a link to our YouTube channel, and we will be posting the recording of this talk there as well. So if you want to catch up on the secrets again later on, secret birding spots, you're welcome to check it out. There was one more question.
Mm-hmm.
See, there have been several reports of common redpolls, white-winged crossbills, and pine siskins. Have you seen these at the park?
Yeah, I've seen pine siskins at the park. I actually had common redpolls in my house last week, and was able to get a number of people out to see those. And I've had pine siskins in my house, gosh, since September. I think they've probably eaten about 80 pounds of Kin's black oil sunflower seed from Prairie Melody. So they've cost me a lot of money this year, but the pine siskins have been here every day. At the park, I've seen a redpoll, but it's not this year. I haven't seen a redpoll at the park, and the crossbills have not seen those at the park. I think there's only one report of them from 2012 or 2013 when they had a good year, but I wasn't around then.
Cool. Well, there's a lot of comments saying that this was an excellent presentation, and thank you very much. And folks love pine siskins. And so with that, Nate, thanks again, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I hope you all have a really good night and weekend.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nate. It was good to see you.
You too, Sarah.
Great to
Have
see you,
fun.
Nick.
Good luck.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
migration
Well done.
season.
Yeah, you too.
Well done.
Thank you.